land-based air forces are seldom willing to pay. The Navy's Hornet is about 50% more expensive than its Air Force counterpart, the F-16, with a base cost of about $25 million. The Hornet's stablemate on a carrier is the legendary F-14 Tomcat. The Tomcat, like the F-15, was designed for one mission only: air superiority. But air superiority over the ocean means something different than air superiority over land. For many years, the main opponent of the Tomcat was not other fighters, but rather enemy missile bombers, such as the Soviet Bear. The Tomcat was designed to shoot down those bombers before they could launch their missiles at the carrier. Failing that, they were designed to shoot down the incoming missiles. This required the most powerful missile ever used on a U.S. aircraft, the Phoenix. It is the longest-range air-to-air missile in current service, as well as the heaviest and most powerful. The Tomcat's role is evolving to reflect a new security environment. Since the threat of Soviet missile bombers has disappeared, the Tomcat is taking on new missions. By adding sophisticated electronic attack systems, the Tomcat can now strike ground targets. Although no Soviet air threat remains, current generation Russian fighters are still quite capable machines. How good are they, and what impact will they have, as many third-rate air forces around the world purchase Russian combat aircraft as they appear on the world's arms market for the first time? Been more mysterious than those of the former Soviet Union, such as this MiG-29 Fulcrum. Cloaked under a veil of secrecy, it has long been a riddle how Russian fighter aircraft compared to their Western counterparts. But since the collapse of the Soviet Union, much more information has become available, much of it coming from the Russian designers themselves. Russia now operates two top-of-the-line fighters, the MiG-29 Fulcrum and the Sukhoi 27 Flanker. This is not a high-low mix, as in the American case, but rather is due to the different organization of the Soviet air forces. Technically speaking, the biggest distinctions between the Russian Fulcrum and Flanker are size and range. In order to patrol vast areas of airspace, the Flanker is an enormous fighter, similar to the U.S. Air Force's F-15. It has much greater range and payload than the smaller Fulcrum. The Fulcrum is roughly the same size as the U.S. Navy's Hornet strike fighter, and quite similar in performance. Of the two, the Flanker is the more impressive. It was designed specifically to match or surpass the U.S. Air Force's F-15 Eagle. As a result, it came several years afterward and incorporates some newer fighter technology, including fly-by-wire flight controls. It is also armed with an impressive array of missile weapons. The Sukhoi 27 forms the foundation of a whole new generation of Russian combat aircraft. Like the U.S. Air Force, the Russian Air Force is developing a strike version of the Flanker, the Sukhoi 34. The most advanced version of the Flanker, the Sukhoi 35, is still in development. It is being used as a test platform for several new innovations, including a vectored thrust engine for superior maneuverability. The Fulcrum is a smaller and less expensive fighter than the Flanker. It is the inheritor of a long tradition of Russian jet fighter design, including the MiG-15 fighter of the Korean War and the MiG-21 of the Vietnam War.
The MiG-29 was designed for very much the same kind of mission as an F-16. It has a lot of power and a lot of acceleration. On the debit side, as it were, the MiG-29's air-to-ground capability is not as refined in the current versions as the F-16's. The final and perhaps most serious shortcoming of the early version of the MiG-29 is it had very short range.
Although it has been assumed that the Russian Fulcrum and Flanker were simply copies of Western technology, new revelations about their design has cast these assumptions into doubt. Indeed, the Fulcrum reveals several unique approaches to design in the Russian fighters. For example, the matter of this strange bump on the nose of the Russian aircraft.
Well, there's a little tear-shaped blister at the in the nose of a MiG-29 or an Su-27, which is called the infrared search and track system, and this is it's essentially a terrific zoom camera, which enables the pilot to look far out, way beyond what the human eye could see.
As the veil of secrecy around Russian aerospace technology has lifted, we are finally able to take a more accurate measure of Russian combat aircraft. Pilot and aviation journalist Jeff Ethell recently had an opportunity to fly several of the newest Russian fighters and was very impressed.
These are phenomenal machines. They're built like tanks. They're built to have a 17-year-old maintain it with a ball-peen hammer. We can't do that. We can't even touch our airplanes without huge support facilities. So that's the first thing. They are rugged. They do fly. They do work. The second thing is they're cheap. They're much cheaper than ours, and they have the identical performance as far as speed, acceleration, power, all those things you want in a fighter. Are their radars as good? No. Is their avionic equipment as good? No. But do you need that extra last bit of Cadillac technology? Probably not. What you need is a well-trained pilot. And almost all studies ever since World War I have shown that the difference in a war is training.
Streaking over the skies of Europe, the sleek delta wing shape has become the symbol of French fighter design. While other countries have experimented with delta wing fighters, no nation has become so closely associated with the delta wing as France. This began in the 1960s with the design of France's most important post-war fighter, the Dassault Mirage 3. The Mirage was widely exported and became famous in the hands of Israeli pilots during the 1967 Mid-East War. The basic soundness of the design led to its continual evolution, including South Africa's version, the Cheetah. In the 1980s, the Mirage 3 evolved into an entirely new design, the Mirage 2000. Although similar in appearance to the Mirage 3, the Mirage 2000 took advantage of all the new fighter technologies brought about in the computer age, including electronic sensors, fire controls, and precision missiles. The latest version of the Mirage 2000 fighter, the 2000-5, employs a new generation radar and the Mika active radar missile. Although many fighter designers around the world consider the Delta configuration old-fashioned, the Dassault designers breathed new life into the design by incorporating computer-based fly-by-wire flight controls. Fighters with fly-by-wire controls are a dramatic improvement over those using conventional aircraft controls. On aircraft fitted with conventional controls, the stick and rudder are connected hydraulically to the control surfaces, which enable the aircraft to maneuver. In a fighter with fly-by-wire controls, there is no mechanical or hydraulic link. Instead, the stick and rudder commands are passed by electrical impulse to the control surfaces via computer. Fly-by-wire makes the fighter much more responsive and maneuverable. As has been the case with so many other air forces, the French have used their primary fighter design as the basis for a high-performance strike fighter. The Mirage 2000N is unique in this regard. It is not used for conventional attack, but as a strategic strike weapon for delivering nuclear missiles. In this role, the Mirage 2000N replaces the older and much larger Mirage strategic bomber. Fighter design has evolved quite differently across the English Channel. England has not designed its own fighters since the 1960s, with the English Electric Lightning. Instead, England has taken part in multinational European programs tied with Germany and Italy. In the 1970s, this European group, called Panavia, developed the Tornado strike aircraft. The Tornado performs the same role as America's F-111s or its F-15E Strike Eagles. It is primarily intended to attack ground targets, not for dogfighting. The Tornado formed the backbone of British combat aviation units serving in the Gulf War in 1991. Britain's Royal Air Force saw the need for a new fighter in the